Look at what we are doing. As you know, the Parthenon, which is the source of all architecture, at least in the West, you have a building which is on top of the hill where, the oldest thing is to climb the hill to where the gods live in every religion, in every civilization. In the case of the Greeks, the building they put on the top of the hill, it does not imitate nature. It's very important. It is in conversation, in dialogue with nature, but not in imitation of nature. And that was given down to the Romans and then down to Palladio, and then finally to Corbusier. And I think Corbusier always identified himself this way. Now, if I come down this line, and I'm very influenced by Corbusier, if I turn left, do I find Indian architecture? Or if I'm Japanese, can I turn right and find Japan? I think, of course not. To come to Japan or India or to something, or Iran, you have to come down a different line altogether. Because this was a particular line established in the Mediterranean by a group of people. And it's a wonderful thing, and it dominates all our thinking. But it's a problem we have. I'm talking about us who live outside the Western world, to realize that this thing is so fundamental that you can't come this far and then find your way back to India. Because if you look at that, if I look at something else, if I look, say, at the caves in Ajanta, these caves are quite different from that. You cannot say that they are destroyed, that they are dominating the hill or the mountain, but neither are they leaving it alone. It's nothing so simplistic as just say either or. It's an ambiguous thing. It's a kind of dialogue which is quite different. And if you came down from there, I think you'd come to quite a different kind of architecture. So from time to time, I've speculated about what that would be. I think it could be a kind of non-building which does not dominate the hill, which works with nature in a different way. This was a project, a building in Bharat Bhavan in Bhopal, which was now it's 30 years old, in which it's a big art center, one of the biggest in India. But when you enter, you don't see anything because the whole building is cut into the hill and comes down to the water. And you enter and you go through these courtyards as you descend along these long walls. So the building is more like landscaping, and then this is when you step in, if you see something you like, you step inside, and then you get whatever, the objects, the light. So there's many facilities, a museum of modern art, of tribal art, dance programs, workshops, etc. But they all comes off a kind of narrative. And I put in this clip just to tell you, because it's very difficult to, as my friend who's a photographer said, you cannot photograph what isn't there. That's the danger of what we're doing. But so it gives you some idea of how the building looks in use. And here the thing coming down to the water and to the lake of Bhopal. So it's a kind of non-building. All the issues I've been talking to you about, including the metaphysics of architecture and the empty center, the ritualistic pathway, informed this project. If I hadn't lived in India and done these things, I couldn't have done this one in Lisbon the way it was. It's a site which is here, and this is the site, and this is the river Tagus, and where it joins the Atlantic, and from where the great navigators like Henry the Navigator, and of course Vasco da Gama and his other people, they sailed out to discover on their voyages of discovery. So the site we have is a historic site, but it's nondescript, it was. Now when I went to see the site, it was locked, and I'd just come in on a flight and stuff, so I wanted to see it. It was drizzling, and we kept walking along this curve. And I kept asking Jean, who's a client, Botelho, I said, where's the ocean? And he said, just a little further, And of course we didn't find it. I mean, we had to go back with the rain. So, but when I went to sleep that night, I knew that we must find a way to go when you enter, to go straight to the water. And then because you have a pathway here, I said it cannot be just two walls. There has to be a thing where you go back to this public space and go. So in other words, you're giving all this back to the city. And the buildings are behind these curved walls. That's a model of the thing. There are three buildings actually. One is it's a center. When it opened, I said, I'm so proud this is not a museum of modern art. I'm fed up of them. This is a place for dealing people who have cancer, brain disease, going blind. So they're real people struggling to survive. And we've tried to use architecture as therapy, nature as therapy, the sea, the sky, etc. And I think that's very important because it used to be that architecture was concerned with schools, with hospitals. And I think one of the great buildings of Alto, as you know, is that TB hospital. We don't do that anymore now. You have to do either museums or airports to show that you're really good. And actually both these are building types which are, I would say, culture free. You can do whatever you like. But if you try to do housing, then it's very culturally specific and climate specific. And I think that's very important because that knowledge is then brought to other projects. So at the end of this big slope, you are walking up a slope and all you see ahead is the sky. You come to some water, and in that water is a very enigmatic object. It could be the back of a turtle or an island. And then here you can see the three buildings. This is given to the city as an amphitheater, which they have everything from science lectures to rock concerts. So this, just show you some pictures of the building finished. This is the empty center. This is the bridge at the top, the glass bridge. This you can see the pathway to the sea. This is where you get off the car. The two buildings, the medical center, this is the conference center and the offices and stuff. And there's the glass bridge over, and then this is the third thing. And then these are all lit by gardens, and so there is a nice definition of the private space and then the public space. It's like yin-yang, they don't interfere with each other. This is from the sea. This is just finishing construction. That opening is of the auditorium, and we've got one sheet of plexiglass which gives you this view of the river. That's the Belay Tower, which is that historic tower. These are the entrances. This is inside the building. This just shows you an idea of how the gardens at different levels, with a wall there, giving light and air and scale to the spaces. This is a big tropical forest because I thought when you're really ill it would be wonderful to see nature and how fecund it is. This is one of the therapy courtyards where they can administer, and they've got, for that chemotherapy, etc. That's the amphitheater. That's the That's the glass bridge. There we go. And there you can see the slope and how you don't get to see the curve over here. You don't get to see people. All you see is right out to infinity. So I'll just take you up that slope and you reach the top. And I put these two concrete columns which end in blue concrete to symbolize this idea of the unknown. In fact, it's called the Champalimo Center for the Unknown. And that's the object in the water, which could be anything. It's what you go in search of.